Artificial Sun, Chapter 3. Althea's eyes opened slowly as her surroundings became clearer. She was in a hospital room, which was poorly decorated. It seemed to look like the walls were cemented, and there was nothing in the room except for a single hospital bed that Althea occupied, and an old wooden chair that Bayard was sitting on with his head in his hands. There was also a low-hanging, dim light in the center of the ceiling, but that was all. Althea suddenly felt as if her chest was on fire, so she broke out into a coughing fit. Bayard raised his head and instantly rushed to her side. When the coughing ended, she looked helplessly at him.
Bayard?
She asked, as if she was making sure he was real. He nodded his head, his eyes worried as he gripped her shoulders.
What happened?
She looked around, and then to her arms, which were bruised, the marks resembling needle-inflicted holes.
Where am I?
Her heart rate started to increase, and she lurched to stand up. But Bayard gripped her shoulders, steadying her into a sitting position.
Hey, it's okay. You're okay.
His voice was surprisingly soft and calming, and Althea controlled her breathing as she looked at him, urging him to continue.
Something happened to Pellinore.
Worry instantly rushed through Althea. She remembered trying to heal his wing before it turned black and she fell unconscious. She wondered if she had done something to hurt him.
What happened?
Her throat was dry as she spoke, and she was dreading the answer. Bayard swallowed hard before running a hand through his dark hair.
His wings turned black when you tried to heal him.
Bayard explained, though he avoided Althea's eyes.
Then he started changing.
He swallowed hard, clearly reliving the memory. He didn't say anything after that.
Changing how?
Althea asked, though Bayard refused to look at her or to answer.
And Grunner?
She asked a different question.
He's okay. He's been waiting for you to wake up, actually. He was really worried. Said he'd never heard or seen anything like what happened last night.
Bayard took a seat next to Althea and sighed.
You had us all worried.
I don't know what happened. I know I can't control my powers, but last night they drained me more than ever before.
Have you ever had to heal that many people before?
Althea paused and swallowed hard.
Guess not.
She looked around and asked again.
Where am I?
The hospital.
Bayard shrugged and stood up before he held his hand out for Althea to take. She took his hand and stood up.
It's ugly.
Althea chuckled weakly.
Where are all the nurses and doctors?
Althea had never been to Edagene Hospital before. She was a healer, and any situation that she got hurt in, she could help herself out of. She'd heard tales of how deserted the hospital was, and how there weren't any staff, but rather a healing orb that was situated in each room. Bayard didn't respond, but held the back of Althea's head to prevent whiplash and speedily exited the hospital. Before she knew it, they were in the common room. Grunner and the rest were already there, talking about the situation of the night before. Grunner tiredly looked at Bayard and Althea when they arrived.
Bayard, Althea.
He greeted them with nods.
Right on schedule.
When Althea spared him a confused glance, he elaborated.
The orb told us when you'd wake up, and we've been waiting since.
I didn't know they could do that.
Althea muttered as she took a seat on the couch of their common room. The common room was set up like a games room, though the games were more advanced than human games. They were games that challenged their powers and combat skills.
Now that everyone is here,
Grunner said as Bayard took a seat on the far end of the room. Grunner's eyes suddenly turned dark and serious.
something is going on, and I'm not supposed to talk to you guys about it.
His eyes flicked to each fledgling.
But I can't keep you in the dark. Titan bears haven't been seen for 7 years. They're too powerful to be controlled by even me. How did you guys survive?
Every head turned to Althea, but Flynn was the one who spoke.
The bear took us all out, sir. Don't know about them, but one minute the bear knocked me out cold, and the next minute Althea was standing over me, healing me.
It was pretty much the same for me.
Neolani said, shooting Althea an appreciative smile, which she returned with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes.
Althea, how did you, my least equipped student, defeat the bear?
Grunner's voice was filled with interest as his calculating gaze stayed fixed on Althea.
I don't know.
She admitted.
It just never hurt me. It tried to, but Ambrose...
She looked at Ambrose, who looked back at her in surprise at the mention of his name.
He pushed me out of the way just in time. Then the bear looked at me and just walked away. Like the dragon. But I don't understand, Grunner. You controlled the dragon to leave me alone.
There was a long pause before Grunner sighed.
Screw it.
He muttered under his breath.
I didn't control the dragon to do anything.
He confessed, drawing a gasp from Althea's lips.
But you said...
I know what I said.
He bit, interrupting Althea mid-sentence.
I lied. Nobody has looked at a dragon in the eyes and lived due to the dragon retreating. You said the bear did the same. I didn't want to say it, but something weird is going on.
Grunner's eyes shifted to each fledgling.
I don't know who's behind it. I don't know what's going to happen. But I'll be damned before I let anyone touch you lot. You hear me?
He growled a bit towards the end.
Grunner, we're scared.
Ameera admitted, pushing her knees to her chest. She sounded vulnerable, and Grunner's chest fell as he released a sharp sigh.
I know, Ameera. I know.
His voice was reduced to almost a whisper.
Why don't we talk about Pellinore instead? Any word on his orb?
None yet.
Ambrose sighed. He was Pellinore's roommate, so the orb would report to him unless stated otherwise. Althea's orb must have been commanded to report to Grunner instead of her roommate, Neolani.
What happened to him?
Asked Althea, but nobody wanted to meet her eyes to answer her.
Is he going to live?
He's alive for sure.
Flynn muttered under his breath.
With all due respect, sir,
Bayard spoke to Grunner.
but I don't think we should talk about Pellinore in front of Althea. She'd just blame herself.
I won't!
Althea protested with an invisible force of guilt tugging at her chest.
You're literally doing it right now.
Flynn smirked at her, leaning forward and folding his hands together.
Get out of my head, Flynn!
She barked.
Okay, no Pellinore talk.
Grunner said.
Althea, when you're ready, Ambrose will take you to see Pellinore.
He nodded at Ambrose before looking at the fledglings again.
As you all know, I meant to serve as your mentor and nothing else. But I've lost so many along the way.
Heads hung when Grunner said that. They started off as 30 fledglings. There were now 8, including Pellinore.
I've never lost so many.
His voice dwindled off, but he composed himself.
I am your guardian. I want to keep you safe. So listen to me when I say this. Do not trust anyone. You hear me?
His voice got dark and aggressive towards the end.
The only people you can trust are in this room. Do you understand?
The fledglings looked at one another, as if sizing each other up. When Althea and Flynn locked eyes, he shot her a wink and a smirk, which she ignored by quickly looking away.
Grunner?
Althea spoke, and when Grunner looked at her, a softness washed over his features.
What happened to me yesterday? What did the orb say was wrong with me?
It didn't tell us any of that. Only the time you were expected to wake up.
He ran a hand across his face before he stood up.
Now you lot get ready for training. We're refining your combat skills today.
He exited the room, leaving the fledglings alone.
Is everyone okay?
Neolani asked. She had dark skin with shocking white hair that fell just above her shoulders. Due to her teleportation powers, her eyes were each a different color. The left one was a shocking yellow, while the other one was a bright green.
I think so.
Ameera was pale, with hair that fell in dark waves just above her shoulders. She had tattoos snaking up her arms, showing symbols of each of the elements she could control. Her nose was upturned, and her russet eyes were large and doe-like.
Whoever is behind all of this is going to pay. I've been waiting to refine my combat skills, as Grunner said.
Azura stood up to walk out. She was sun-kissed, with hair as red as the flames she could conjure. Her face was no longer half-scorched, due to Althea's healing after the fight with the bear, and her eyes were emerald. She was a beauty, though she was just like fire, not to be touched. She walked out of the room with determination.
I'm glad she's on our side.
Flynn joked with a half-smile on his lips. Althea rolled her eyes at him, which only egged him on.
Aw, wildcard. Don't look so grim.
I think she's gorgeous when she acts like that.
Ambrose kept his eyes on the door where Azura exited. Ambrose was tall, about Bayard's height. He had strong shoulders, but wasn't overly muscular. His skin was pale, his eyes the brightest blue, and his hair was red-brown, as was the stubble he was growing. He had handsome features and strong eyebrows, and he was absolutely in love with Azura, though she had yet to return his affections. Althea scoffed and stood up to follow Azura. She barely paid attention to the fledglings around her as she made her exit. Flynn jogged after her.
Hey, are you okay?
He asked her, walking ahead of her and turning to face her so that he was walking backwards.
Stop following me.
She glared at him.
Did I somehow offend you, wildcard?
He faked a pout.
Don't call me that.
Her words left her mouth in a fashion that seemed as if she was spitting venom. Flynn clutched a hand over his heart in mock pain.
You don't like the name I gave you?
He narrowly dodged one of the younger fledglings, so he decided to face ahead of him as he slowed down his stride so that they were walking beside each other.
You are a wild card, aren't you? Can't control your powers, always doing something to surprise us. Look at what you did to poor Pellinore.
He whistled under his breath towards the end of his sentence.
Why don't you go torment somebody else since you're so clearly obsessed with me?
She didn't look at him as she said this.
I'm obsessed with you?
He asked in amusement.
Yeah, you don't read anyone else's mind or tease them constantly. It's obvious you're like in love with me or something.
She sounded annoyed. Flynn paused for a second.
So what if I am?
She looked at him quickly to see if he had his usual mocking smile or condescending smirk on his lips, but he didn't. He was looking at her with a relaxed expression on his face. She clenched her jaw before releasing it with a sigh. Before she could talk, Flynn perked up as they neared the training arena.
Oh look, we're here. Ready to get bested in combat?
Althea allowed a challenging smirk to creep onto her lips.
If that's a challenge.
She pulled her dagger from the scabbard attached to her belt and began twirling it in her fingers without a sliver of effort. She grabbed the hilt suddenly and met Flynn's gaze.
Then I accept.
Impressive.
Flynn cocked a brow up, his hand gripping the hilt of his sword, which was in its own scabbard.
I'm more of a sword guy myself.
The problem with swords is that
Althea said, twirling the dagger in her fingers again.
they take too long to unsheath.
As she said this, she managed to pin Flynn to a nearby column, the tip of her dagger pointed at his throat as she held him in place with her lower arm.
Impressive, I'll give you that.
Flynn barely managed to say before Althea pushed her upper arm further into his throat, cutting off his sentence. However, within a flash, she was found that she was on the floor, her dagger laying a few paces from her. Flynn's sword was pointed towards her, catching the sunlight. Althea looked up at him, appreciating the beauty that the sunlight bestowed him. She always said that the sunlight favored him.
Always watch your feet.
He cocked his head to the side.
I believe I've won.
He slid his sword back into its scabbard and held a hand out to Althea. She sighed and picked up her fallen dagger before standing up on her own, ignoring his extended hand.
For now.
She turned and walked towards the entrance of the training arena. Flynn smirked to himself, his head tilted as he watched Althea retreat into the training arena, no doubt to practice before the actual training would begin. Ambrose groaned as Althea managed to pin him to the ground, her legs on either side of him with a dagger firmly cradled toward his throat. She had a wild glint in her gray eyes, one that she always had in the midst of combat training.
Yield! I yield!
Ambrose struggled to say. He was one of the strongest people Althea knew, yet she managed to disarm him and hold him at a disadvantage. With a smirk, Althea hoisted herself up and extended a hand to her fellow fledgling. He took it, but used his own strength to pull himself up. Althea nearly crashed into his chest upon impact, but he steadied her by her shoulders. He lowered his voice.
The worst fledgling in Edogen, but the best damn fighter for sure.
His eyes glimmered with pride when he said this. Grunner clapped his hands once to signal the end of combat training. Althea looked around in confusion only to see that she'd taken out the other 5 as well. Grunner's single clap turned into a slow applause, and she faced him, her heart swelled with pride.
You did good. Nobody could survive against you.
Grunner nodded, and she let out a sharp breath of relief as a grin spread across her face.
Thanks. I've been practicing.
She flipped her dagger and swiftly put it away. Grunner turned his attention to the rest of the fledglings.
Your skills grow with each passing day.
He smiled, but it didn't quite reach his eyes.
It's not long before your final evaluation. I've had these made for you.
He walked towards a table in a far corner of the room that was covered by a white sheet.
The finest weaponry I've ever seen.
He pulled the sheet off of the table, and a variety of weapons were sprawled out across the table.
Pick any you'd like.
Althea stayed rooted to the spot, even when the other fledglings pushed past her to gawk at the weaponry and take their pick. She stayed unmoving, her heart in her throat as her chest tightened. Flynn noticed her reluctance, and his gaze studied her before his eyes followed hers to a beautifully made bow with equally beautiful arrows. The wood was polished and engraved with the symbol of a mighty dragon. The telepathist knew what she was thinking at that moment. Pellinore would have loved this. Quick as lightning, her head snapped to Ambrose. The sun started to lower, dusting the skies with pink and orange hues, all the more motivation for Althea to make her demand.
Ambrose, I want to see Pellinore.
The tall fledgling froze, his back tensed as he examined the axe in his hand. He swallowed and looked at Grunner, who nodded. Ambrose didn't let go of the axe when he started to walk out of the training arena. Althea had never seen him so troubled. She followed after him, barely keeping up.
Ambrose?
She asked, trying her best to find his face, but his expression remained blank as he led her to the hospital where she'd woken up. Ambrose's gaze flickered to her for a second before he looked ahead of him again. He clenched his jaw as they reached the entrance, and his eyes found Althea's.
It's not a hospital. It's a graveyard.
His voice was grim and sent chills down Althea's spine. Wordlessly, Ambrose led Althea to Pellinore's room. They both entered, but Ambrose stood more towards the wall than Althea. Pellinore was motionless, on the same cardboard-like bed that Althea woke up on. His wings were blackened, and his face was grayed with unknown patterns sprawled on them. Althea inhaled deeply and walked towards her fellow fledgling, her friend. His eyes were shut, and he was unflinching, unmoving. Without thinking, Althea slowly held her hands toward him and breathed his name.
Pellinore.
Wait, don't!
Ambrose yelled, but before he could finish his sentence, Pellinore's eyes snapped open. They were completely black, no trace of his irises, pupils, or the white of his eyes. They were pitch black. He opened his mouth and let out a scream before he reached out and launched himself at Althea. He acted mindless, predatorial, like the zombies they were fighting during training, but there was something different about him, something more lifelike than the zombies. Althea let out a gasp and jumped back, having bumped straight into Ambrose, who pulled her back protectively. She was so engrossed in the scene in front of her that she didn't care that the blade of Ambrose's axe was cold against her skin. Pellinore launched himself at her, and only then did she notice the chains that had anchored him to the hospital bed. His grayed face was inches from hers, but he couldn't reach her due to the chains holding him back. He opened his mouth and let out a banshee-like scream. Althea's breathing increased as she took in the sight of the fledgling. Did she do this to him? One of the mentors, Foxglove, loomed over Pellinore's mindless form days later before he faced Hellebore, the warden of Edogene.
What the hell happened here?
His gruff, northern English voice drowned out the snarls of a completely strapped-down Pellinore. Foxglove's hand fidgeted with the cocked gun in his fingers. He itched to use it.
If I knew, don't you think I would have told you?
Hellebore had a stressed expression on his face. The creases in his face told stories of age, but also of worry.
He's one of Gunner's.
The very same.
Foxglove snarled. He had an eye patch covering his left eye, though it was poor attempt to hide the scar that ran through it, courtesy of Grunner's blade. The scar aged, but so did Foxglove's hatred for the mind-controlling mentor. Hellebore stared at the creature for a few seconds.
Nobody must know of this,
he eventually said before he nodded at the gun in Foxglove's hand. Without hesitation, or a single glance at the winged fledgling, Foxglove sent a bullet through his brain. The sound of the gunshot ended at the same time as the snarling and groans that came from Pellinore. With the wave of his hand, Hellebore disintegrated every particle in Pellinore's body with his telekinesis, leaving nothing but a pool of blood behind.
This never happened before.
Foxglove slid his gun into its spot by his waistband.
I told you the girl is getting too powerful.
There was an unspoken agreement that this was done by none other than Althea. They'd always known what she was. After all, they made her. Foxglove continued.
What happens when she finds out what she is? When she finds out what we did to her? Nobody could keep us safe then. Not even the bloody queen.
Hellebore breathed deeply, the pounding in his chest becoming more and more evident with every breath he took. He raised his head, his voice final.
Call on every fledgling you have.
His crimson eyes were soulless and detached as his mouth curled into a sinister sneer.
Raid their dorm. Bring me the girl. And kill the rest.
Grunner sat on a rickety chair in what would pass as a bar with a glass of whiskey in front of him. He knew that this moment would come, and he was dreading it. The only joy he could get out of it was the fact that he was on time, that he could save his fledglings. It had been a week since their escape, a week that Hellebore and Foxglove spent searching for his students. He managed to give them weapons, and he managed to talk to Bayard in time. At least he could save them. He could do something right. Grunner heard a commotion outside, and he knew that the time had come. He knew Hellebore and Foxglove discovered that his fledglings were missing and had given up the search. He knew that they had used Foxglove's telepathy to locate him, since they couldn't locate his fledglings, not by a long shot. The auburn-haired mentor downed his whiskey before he stood up and walked towards the door of the nearly empty bar. He smiled softly to himself. He said he'd be damned before he would let anyone harm his fledglings, and he meant it. An uncalled-for calmness washed over him as he walked towards the door. He exited the bar with his hands held on either side of him in surrender.